Hi everyone, welcome to Insight 2.0 Psychology. My name is 𝐿𝐴𝐚 𝐿𝐴𝐚. I'm going to be a moderator for today. A little introduction. I passed out of 𝐭𝐜 in 2020. I'm currently doing my �SYJC Arts from 𝐵 College for Women. As far as our speakers go, we have two very beautiful women with us today. We have Ms. 𝐿𝐴𝐚 𝐿𝐴𝐚 and Ms. Roshali Lulla. 𝐿𝐴𝐚 𝐿𝐴𝐚 passed out of 𝐭𝐜 in 2016. She completed her ISC 12th from there. She did her undergrad BA from 𝐵 College for Women. And in September 2021, she will be receiving her Master's in Occupational Psychology from the University of Hertfordshire, London. Ms. Roshali Lulla, she passed out of 𝐭𝐜 in 2016. She completed her ISC 12th from there. She did her undergraduate BA from GEAAA and has got her master's as well in counseling psychology. They are going to be our speakers for today. A little disclaimer, whatever we are speaking about today is their experience. This is what they have done and what has worked for them. The same might not work for you guys. You just have to learn from this, listen to their experience and take it for yourself. It's been quite a few years since they have passed out. A lot of things have changed, especially with the education policy. So please keep that in mind. And we request everyone to stay muted. If possible, please put on your videos. We want this to be an interactive session. So yeah, I think over to the speakers now. Thank you so much. If you all would like to introduce yourselves, say something, please go ahead.
Thank you, 𝐿𝐴𝐚. That was quite an introduction. And yes, we are ready for today. So we'll be starting with the PPT soon. Before that, I just want you all to react with the emotions and tell us how you all are doing. Is everybody okay? Have you all got a cup of tea or water with you all? I'm waiting for the emojis to pop up. All right. It seems you're a little shy right now. It's okay. We open up as the program goes forward. So Roshali, over to you if you want to say anything else.
Yeah, so just like Aman said, thank you 𝐿𝐴𝐚 for this introduction. And we just wanted to know how is everyone feeling. So if you can just use some emojis or if you can just type on the chat box, even that's okay. And then we can start with the presentation.
As I said, we want this to be an interactive session, so please don't be shy, just open up. It's not a college school lecture. It's all comfortable over here, so please. Yes, we see the responses. So glad for this. Thank you so much. So as I hope you all can see my screen, we have 𝐴𝐚 𝐿𝐴𝐚, who's an occupational psychologist, and Roshali Lulla, who is a counseling psychologist. Both of them have just finished their masters, and they will be speaking to us today. As far as the agenda goes, we plan to start with the personal journey of both of our speakers, what they did, what they didn't do, what worked for them, the path to psychology, what are the options that you all have, entrance exams that are there, which I will be speaking about, the internship experiences of our speakers. We will go on to the question and answer round, which again, we expect an interactive session from you guys. You all can post out your questions. We have the questions that were sent on the WhatsApp group, so we will be answering those as well. And we have a busting myths round as well, which you all can put up any myths that you all think are there for towards psychology, or something that you all want to know if it's a myth or not. And our speakers will tell us if it's true or not. So yeah, that's what we're gonna go with. Over to the speakers.
So I think I'll take up this question first. So personal journey, why psychology? So the first time I took up psychology was in my ISC in 11th and 12th. So I had taken the commerce field along with psychology, and I was studying both commerce and psychology together, and I kind of saw how both of them really merged into each other. While we did not have a different section towards the or different section dedicated to these two together, but we were all learning the basis of psychology. And while that could be a little dry, I still was glued onto it. And I wanted to know more because I knew, like, once I advanced further into my studies, it would get more interesting. So I think that's probably where I found my why psychology, and I made my base really strong so that, and I was sure that I wanted to stick with psychology throughout. Vishali, over to you.
Yes, so it's kind of like similar to what Kaman said. So till 10th, I was doing science and I actually wanted to become a doctor. So I wanted to get into the field of gynecology, but I wanted to do ISC, but physics was very tough for me and I couldn't. I was like, I can't do this. So the next best thing for me was psychology. So I consulted a lot of my teachers who know me, like my bio teachers, my science teachers, etc. And they told me that this is a field of psychology which can be interesting to you. It's basically like social science. So it's the next best thing after medical if I want to try. So I was like, why shouldn't I? So I took ISC with psychology and my other subjects were commerce, accounts and economics. And so as Kaman said, so for her, even though in the beginning it was a little dry to her with the aspect of industrial and psychology, and later on, she really liked it and she sticked on with it. It was kind of opposite for me. So from the beginning only, I felt it, it was a little dry for me. And I always wanted to do something in the field of counseling and mental health, specifically with related to therapy. So right now I am trying to enhance my skills to become a psychotherapist. And basically my whole experience, so I'm actually very glad that I did science till 10th. It really helped me because some of the major chunks of psychology did involve bio and the anatomy of the brain and the neurotransmitters, hormones, etc. And with ISC, actually, the experience was really good. I felt that the foundation is very important in this field. So I'm really glad that I did ISC as compared to the other state boards and CBSE, etc. Because I felt that it was really fulfilling and it involved a lot of research on my own. So there was a lot of self-study. So it was like we were suddenly thrown into working from 3 to 4 books. I think Kaman will remember. We just had like one primary book, but we had to go through reference book. Like we had 3-4 books to go through, and it was tough. Because suddenly you're studying till 10th and you have these particular textbooks, but now you have to study one subject with 3-4 books. So, and that involved self-study, your independent reading, and specifically what really helped me stuck in this course was my own passion and curiosity. So with every lecture that we used to have, I think Kaman will also remember, like we were in the same class, I used to ask a lot of questions because everything used to interest me so much. And especially the teacher that we had, I don't know if she is still there, she has left the school. Her name is Jayashree ma'am, and she was really an amazing teacher. She's the one who really helped me, love this course. And yeah, so after ISC, and then I went on with my BA. And next, Kaman can state her experience.
Yes, and I think ISC was again very important for me because I got to know the subject of psychology more. Well, it's a people subject, right? It involves a lot of interaction with other people. So you need to be sure if you are the right person for that interaction. And the reason why I chose industrial psychology is my voice cracking.
No,
Or
I
can
think
you all
I can hear
hear
you.
me?
Pretty good. I think it's good, yeah.
Okay. Let me.
Yeah, now I think command is now audible.
Okay, I think until Kamal is able
Apologies.
to fix her network, why don't Rishali go ahead and say her experience, and we'll come back to
Yeah.
Kamal.
Yes. So, similar to even what Kaman was saying, so we know like psychology is a social science, and it's like, as a career, it's based on social services, even be it any field of psychology. Like psychology has many subfields, but even be it industrial, clinical, counseling, sports, developmental, any field, subfield, it involves you giving your service to other people. It involves you having social interactions. So knowing that about yourself, that you would be okay with, being in a social group, being with interacting others. Even psychology also involves a lot of teaching. So even with the therapy aspects, so like specifically because I'm in the counseling field, so there is a lot of psychoeducation involved, which is basically me trying to explain the client what the issues might be, or what is something new that the client wants to know, what is going on, even the aspects of therapy. So overall, it really involves being in a career which involves you being with other people and you being comfortable with it. That's very important. So I remember as a kid, I actually used to have a lot of issues with stammering. I used to stammer a lot. And I think till 10th, it was really prevalent. And that really, hindered me to, participate in group discussions or public speaking, etc. But really in 11th, 12th, when I took psychology, it really, I don't know how, but it helped me become more open, because you understand, you self-reflect. So when you're studying about your emotions, thoughts, how the brain works, how you're feeling, how situations can affect you, how your parenting can affect you, so many things, etc., you come to a certain kind of realization, which in a way helped me. And I personally also took help with my own psychology teacher, with the aspect of stammering. And I feel like taking this course, even with general life skills, it has really helped me. So even if I see my whole journey from 11th, 12th, and then BA, masters, etc., it has really helped me to become more open, and to this whole seminar as well. So this, it has given me the confidence. Doing psychology has given me the confidence to do all this. So with my experience specifically with related to BA, so I did my, as Alom said, I did my BA from Jain College, where I did my psychology majors. Majors is the TY aspect, like, which is a third year. So your BA generally in India involves 3 years of course, where the third year is where your specialization starts. So where I took psychology, my other subjects in SY and in FY involved philosophy, political science, English, etc. So overall, my experience with BA was, I can say, different as compared to other students who were in other colleges. I had my peers in Xavier's College, I had my peers in Mitibai, etc. Jehand as a whole it really involves you to experience things and gives you exposure. So we had a lot of fest. I think whole undergraduate, whole BA concept is about having so many festivals and seminars, workshops, etc. And these things really helped me. But if I really want to talk about the reality aspects, especially when I was, so Jehand was totally under Mumbai University that time, and we used to have exams like back to back. So it was like 8 papers of psychology back to back, and it was a struggle. It was not easy, and specifically in SY, because you need good number of percentage to get a TY major. So that's why that keeps you very competitive and keeps you very on your toes, that you have to do this, you have to do that, and that was really a struggling aspect. But apart from that, I felt that it really helped me understand this course. We had subjects like cognitive psychology, we had industrial psychology, we had counseling psychology, we had abnormal psychology. And in a whole, it kind of gave like a foundation, like a basic orientation to all these areas of psychology, so that in masters, you can decide in which path that you want to go into. So after doing everything, I selected, so initially I wanted to do clinical psychology, because people seem to have this, even now people have this understanding that clinical psychology is actually the higher, like the most topmost aspect in terms of psychology and the field of mental health. But after studying, after talking to so many experts, my professors, seniors, etc., I really have come to this understanding that it's really not. There is not a hierarchy in a field as people say. It's actually like a teamwork. So suppose a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a psychotherapist, a counselor, all these people will work together. And it depends on the institution where you are. It depends on how much specialization that you have done. So I initially wanted to do clinical, but through some admission goof ups and some issues, I got counseling, and I really do not regret that at all. Because in my course, so in India, masters in psychology, it involves 2 years of course. First year is generally common for both clinical and counseling. So as my friend who did clinical, she had similar subject as me. We were in the same class. But with second year, that is where the specialization starts. And that's where I had a different syllabus, and my friend who did clinical, she had a different syllabus. With us specifically, it was more about therapy, your basic counseling skills, and you understanding adjustment issues. It was not necessarily about diagnosis, testing, or even clinical disorders. So they actually didn't teach us much from the DSM. If you might be aware about the DSM-5, which is the kind of like a manual that we use for clinical disorders, but that is particularly aimed towards clinical students. So they were the ones who were taught all kind of disorders through all spectrums through the DSM-5. But they had more aspects of clinical disorders, like of abnormal psychology, of testing, and in the last sem is where they were oriented to therapies. So if I would like to basically compare from one-on-one, I would say that counseling students were taught more about the therapy aspects. We were taught about say 10 to 15 therapies, and as compared to us, they were taught a little less amount and not in that depth as we were taught. So yeah, so this and my overall experience with masters was actually really good. In masters is where I understood that I kind of understood this is like my calling. My professors were really good. This is just one incident that comes to my mind. So some goof up had happened in class, and how the Indian education system is. Teachers are still very disciplined, authoritative. You have to do everything on time, you have to submission on time, etc. But once some issue had happened, and my professor had actually apologized to me. So that was like a very different thing, because you don't see teachers apologizing to you even when they're wrong, because they have, there can be aspects of ego, there can be hierarchy that, how can I apologize to my student, etc., etc. But, so these professors, because they are also in the field of psychology, they were therapists as well, and they were side by side doing teaching as well. So you could understand the difference, because they understand how, mental health works, how a student's environment is important. I think that really helped me to understand that where I want to be. And I think if I start, I won't stop. So I think I should give next to Kaman so she can say her experience.
Yes, so because like Roshali said, for undergraduate, which was our BA, we practically had the same subjects, because we were under University of Mumbai that time. But she had taken single majors in psychology, which is really essential in India in your third year to get single majors in psychology, which is very difficult to get, as well as essential if you want to carry forward with a top university in India, right? But I, on the other hand, I took double major psychology, because firstly, I knew to go abroad, I didn't really need a single major, and I didn't want it either, because I was studying sociology at the same time, and sociology had a subject called industrial sociology, and psychology had a subject called organizational psychology. So I was very lucky to see how both of them came together again and how they could have been used. Moving on to the postgraduate. In India, postgraduate is normally for 2 years for psychology, but for abroad, actually mostly only for UK, it is 1 year. All right, and you can go immediately after you finish your 3 years of undergrad. On the other hand, if you want to go to US, you want to go to Canada, you want to go to Australia, or all these places that are normally famous, US and UK is generally the top for psychology abroad. US requires you to complete 1 more year in India, and then you go to US for a 2 years master's degree. They don't have a 1 year. So I think weighing the odds over there, I decided to go with UK, and also considering their education system is quite similar to that of India. And over there, I had the opportunity to study subjects like this really fascinates me. So you all will always see a smile on my face when I'm talking about these subjects. So it was psychological assessments at work, which basically includes the recruitment process, starting from seeing what job role is needed, what are the requirements, what do the people need to do, how are we going to attract the candidates, till the talent development of the individual after they are hired. Then we had the subject of well-being at work, which include like stress. It include obviously well-being. It included, okay, now I don't remember, but stress and well-being were like the main topics during that course. Then we had consulting skills. So basically, because during industrial psychology, a huge part can be consulting and talking to people, talking to your clients. That's why that was a very pressurized module that we had, which took place within 1 week. And we had classes like continuously from 9 in the morning till I think 5 in the evening, which was really hectic. And then we moved on to, and then we had leadership and motivation. Again, one of my favorites, where you explore the kind of leaders that are in the organization, the kind of employees, what kind of leadership do they need? How do you develop leaders? And like the leaders of today, as you would guess, are like transformational leaders, where they can adapt to different situations. They can adapt to different leadership styles according to the employees. And then we had the statistical research part, and where, because at the end of your degree, you need to do a research project, which I'm just completing right now. It involved the SPSS software, where you need to do your statistical research for quantitative analysis. And for qualitative analysis, you need to do like a thematic analysis. So all these modules led up to deciding your research study, how you're going to do it, the method you're going to follow, how you're going to analyze the method, and how you're going to how you're going to analyze the data, how you're going to interpret the results, and finally the discussion. So that's kind of the brief that you get for the undergraduate and postgraduate part of industrial psychology or occupational psychology that I went through. And when I spoke about having to do an extra year before you go to US and Canada or Australia, so there are different organizations that offer diplomas. Like a very close friend of mine, she went to TIS and she did 1 year of her organizational psychology from there. And she also got a job side by side. So while she was practicing and she was working during the week, she would attend classes on the weekend. So it was like an integrated course, which I think was fantastic, that is offered by TIS. And now she's gone and she is studying in the US. To the next slide, please, if Rushali does not have anything else to say.
At this point also, does anyone want to ask any questions? If you all want to clear out anything, please go ahead. You all can raise your hand or you all can put it in the chat box, anything that you all are comfortable with.
If nobody has anything else, there's a point that I just remembered. Again, while you are choosing where you want to study and what you want to do, please look at your ROI. So that basically translates into return on investment, right? You can go abroad for your undergraduate as well as your postgraduate. And I wanted to do the same, but when I was looking for undergraduate, honestly, there's a lot that you have to pay. A lot of money goes in. And then you have to see, okay, once you've done your course, what are you going to do after that? Are you going to come back to India? Are you going to work here? Are there going to be any job opportunities over here? So that's one thing you definitely have to look at. And that's why I did not go at that time. But when I went there for my postgraduate, I knew that, okay, once my postgraduate is over, I can stay there for a certain amount of time, and I can stay there for a certain amount of time and I can look for job. There are going to be job opportunities. And even if I don't get a job right now, once I'm over there, I can come back and maybe I won't recover the money that I spent on my education at the same pace as I would have over there, but I will recover it and I will enjoy what I'm doing. So return on investment is not only monetary, but you also need to see the effort that you're going to put in, and it's psychology. So it does involve your emotions as well. That's
Okay,
it from me.
so I don't think we have any questions. I think we'll move on.
I think there is
Okay,
a
we have a
question in the
question.
chat box.
Yes.
Yeah.
What are the jobs that after BA that you can do after BA in psychology?
So as far industrial is concerned, unfortunately, you'll see in India, you'll see these jobs are mainly done by MBAs. All right. So when I went into my internships, it was at Siemens India and Tata Power. And MBAs were basically doing the recruitment process, which is right. It's totally okay. But it is right now a role that is opening up for occupational psychologists. And there are a different set of people who are doing it. So because that is not yet recognized in India, and mind you, it is a growing field, like statistics show, occupational or organizational psychology as a growing field throughout the world. So now, especially after the pandemic, for people to handle stress, to handle well-being in the of the employees in the organization, to make sure the interventions that they put into the organizations work, is where occupational psychologists come in. So so as a beginner, you can be a training coordinator. You can be a recruiter, where again you organize events. You can identify the needs of the employees. You can collect data. You can ask the employees questions and then identify, okay, according to what these people say, I think this intervention should work for them. And that was also one of my first projects, where we knew that there's substantial growth in leadership. And definitely with the advent of technology, the leaders need to be digital ready, right? So what are the skills that what are the skills that leaders will need for tomorrow, and how do you make them ready? So yes, so these are the things you normally look at and that you will get as a job initially. But as you grow forward, you'll go into leadership consultancy, you'll again go into a senior recruitment manager. Then there are so many things, but none of them are coming to my mind right now, because psychology, to be honest, can be used at so many places in the organization. And I think Rishali will help you with the counseling part of it now.
Yeah, so honestly, if you want an honest answer, after BA, you can't get a job, because not only is that a BA is something which many people would have, and there's nothing like, giving you the edge, but also it's not ethical. So in India, if you want to practice as a counselor or a psychologist or a clinical psychologist or a counseling psychologist or even a psychotherapist, a master's in psychology is mandatory. So unless you do your master's, you can't practice as a proper professional. If you do, there can be issues with ethical and how you would be handling your clients, and someone can report you as well. Even though the laws are not stringent enough, they are little bit of stringent. There is some level of responsibility involved in our role. And if you want to work, you can of course take internships. After BA, even during your BA, you can do internships. You can get different kind of experiences, maybe in different kind of setups, like maybe in hospitals, in schools, in clinics, etc., to help you understand where is that you want to do your master's in. And after your master's, also this is a sad part, that even in our field, after your master's, you have to do some kind of courses, some kind of diploma, specialization courses, so that you can appropriately and ethically work as a particular kind of practitioner. So for example, if I did my master's now if I want to work, suppose, so there are many, if you guys would be aware, there are many kinds of therapy, right? There is CBT, there is RABT, there is person-centered. There are new upcoming therapies like ACT, which is acceptance commitment therapy. There is narrative therapy, etc. So there are so many therapies. And if you want to practice as a particular practitioner in that therapy field, you would need a certificate course from a recognized institution. So even I am personally looking at more courses and organizations right now. And one second, there was one more question. Yeah, one sec. Yeah, so basically, yeah, you won't get proper job after BA. You would need to, you can get into internships. And yeah, after MA, of course, you can get jobs. You can start working even in schools as a school counselor. You can start working in clinics, NGOs, organizations, hospitals, etc. But where you work depends a lot on what kind of masters you have done. So this is specifically with clinical psychology in India, you need to do an MPhil after your masters, because after doing your MPhil is only you'll get a license and then you can practice as a clinical psychologist in a hospital. Unless you do your MPhil, if you still want to practice, suppose if you have like some 5-6 years to do your MPhil, suppose you want to take a break with education, etc., you can practice, but then your position would be called as a counseling psychologist, and you won't be able to you won't be able to diagnose, and you won't be able to what do you say, you won't be able to work in a proper hospital that can give you a role as a clinical psychologist. It comes kind of like a, suppose if you don't have an MPhil, then you work as a psychologist, you can work as a psychotherapist as well. So if you want to work as a psychotherapist, you can do again a specific therapy course, a specific specialization, and only then is when you can practice. Did I miss out on
Okay,
other?
so yeah, so there is a question, what is the salary for an intern and how can you get promoted?
So the thing is, you very rarely a luck opportunity if you can get money for internship. But with psychology, you do not. I actually have a very weird experience that I had to pay someone to give me internship. So in my SY and TY, I wanted to do some experience. So I had done my internship in Fortis Hospital, where they have this clinical psychology internship program, something like that, where I had to pay them. I think I paid them around 7 to 8K. But if you honestly ask me as a person, I feel it was not worth it. Because if you're paying, you pay, you have certain kind of expectations, certain kind of standards, and that you will. So they told us that we'll get to observe sessions, we will be trained, we will be like they will do testing with us, etc. Many things were promised. Maybe this is my experience, maybe they have gotten better right now. I haven't kept in touch with all that, but with me it was like that. So you very rarely do you actually get a salary to work as an intern. And this is, if you want me to be again more honest, even with after doing your masters, some organizations still won't pay you enough. So right now, since I'm looking for job, my friends are looking for jobs. So I have some kind of idea what kind of salary basis people are getting. So it can start as low as 5K. It can go to high as even 30K, 40K, etc. It depends on whom you approach. It depends on how you approach and what institution. So if you want to work at an international school, of course, you'll get a higher pay. But if you want to work at a government school or a normal national school, so you will get less amount of pay. And so some organizations, some clinics will do a probation period, whereas they will train you and observe you for 2 to 3 or 4 months. They will not pay you. They will just train you, observe you, and see that if you are a better fit for their organization. If you are, then they'll give you a job and you'll get money, etc. It is a very slow slope, not slope, yeah, it's a very slow graduation graph. It can be frustrating as well. It involves a lot of patience. And that's this thing I wanted to say in the beginning as well. If you want a career in psychology, it's really important that you have that patience and passion. Both the P's are really important, because at many situations you'll feel frustrated. Suppose even if there is a need to earn money and you can't, because in the beginning you won't get high earning jobs as compared to people who do commerce courses or accounts courses, etc. They get. So it can be really frustrating. And if it's that the case, then something which really keeps you stuck with this thing, it will be your own passion, that you want to do this. My own passion is that I genuinely want to honor people and help them in any way that I can. And in help, it's not like to save them, but to actually just aid them and help them understand where they are in their journeys. So that is the passion which is keeping me right now. Suppose agar wo nahi hota, if I didn't have that zeal, that motivation, then I would have even changed my career paths or got into other fields of psychology that would be more earning. So yeah, I think this is what I think. Kaman had a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize on the point where you need to know your why for psychology, and you really need to be patient. And when we talk about taking internships, it is really important to take internships. And I kind of regret it, even though I had two internships before I went for my master's. I really wish I had got a job. And some and right now I feel it's not necessary that you need to get a job in an L&D department or in the recruitment or whatever, because now for the kind of job, like for example, giving a very real example, and what I'm going through right now is, because 95% of the jobs that I see is for recruitment, uh, I am getting rejected in spite of my internship opportunities, because recruitment is a sales kind of a job. So somebody who would have maybe worked at a Nike store just selling shoes might get recruited instead of me, because they have the sales job instead of me who did not have that. So any opportunity, I'm not saying like any bizarre opportunity that you get, just grab it. Sensibly study your topic, see what you really want to do. Like I never thought of recruitment as which is really silly, but I never thought of it as a sales job, right? So really study your subject, see what you want, grab an internship. Like I really wish I had waited for another year and taken up a job and then gone forward with my master's. And I think I might have maybe understood things better. So, or would have contributed better to the class with my experience, additional experience. So that's why I'm stressing on internships, because don't look at it for money. In the beginning, the money is not really important. Gain the experience, understand the subject. Go ahead and see again, do you really want to invest another year or two in the field? Are you liking on the job experience? So that's where that's where we're stressing on doing the internship, and it adds to your CV. And yeah, that's it. And connecting again internships where we are mentioning essential and preferred skills. For it to be psychology, when you do internships, collaborations come, communication comes. When we work in GEAA, all that comes where we are communicating between different departments, we are collaborating, we're being creative. So all these skills that you get finally do come under your CV and do contribute to you getting a job in the future. So please go ahead and do such things, do such internships, and interact with people as much as you can, because at the end of the day, it's psychology. It's your mind, it's your body, and it's your emotions. So just go all in.
Okay, so another question was, what is the scope of an industrial psychologist, and what is the main difference between a person in HR and an occupational or industrial psychologist?
That's a very good question. And right now there's a overlap. Like there is, so we normally call an occupational psychologist, especially with leadership development, with motivation, with learning interventions. They're in the L&D department, which is the leadership and development department. But that comes under the HR department, which also handles recruitment, handles compensation and benefits. There are so many things. So we are looking at kind of going different and kind of recognizing occupational psychologists for their own, business psychologists for their own. And with the scope, I think the scope is wide, because it's recruitment. You have to recruit so many people for each and every role in the organization. You need everybody in the organization to learn together, to develop like together. Then leadership, like everybody wants to be leaders. Everybody wants to progress in their roles. And those who have the potential, why not? You want to develop talent in the organization. So everybody needs to be stress-free. They need to have like a work-life balance. They need to know how to be resilient, how to handle situations as and when they come, how to adapt. Like the pandemic, there were some organizations that were successful, there were some that weren't. And I do give credit to learning and leadership and learning and development teams that adopted technology, that trained their people from the very beginning. From the very beginning, I mean from 2 years ago, when technology was coming into the industry, that this is how you can work from home. if you don't want to turn up to office one day, it is okay. You can sit at home and you can do your work. And that really makes a difference. And I've seen 2 organizations that have really risen and have really thrived, if I may say, and some that have not done very well and they're just coping up. So we play, as organizational psychologists, we play a very important role in the organization. Our scope is huge.
Okay, so we have got a question about top colleges. Aishwarya will be coming to that after a few slides. Another question was, what is the difference between BA and BSc? So if maybe Roshali would like to start and Kamal can add on.
So the only difference is that BA would involve your bachelor's in arts and BSc would involve your bachelor's in science. With related to psychology, the only major difference is that with BSc, it will have more related to the biological and the brain aspects, more related to how the body functions, etc. And that aspect would be in some amounts in lesser value as compared to you doing your BA. But apart from that, there's not a major difference. It's actually a thing like this. Someone had told me recently, like a professional in the field as well had told me that in India, it's like in North India, people actually call it more bachelor in science. They actually don't give BA in arts. Sorry, BA in psychology. They give in bachelor's in science, and in South India, it's kind of like BA. So it's kind of like mixed, and it depends on which country, which city that you're doing in. The only major difference is again the biology aspect. Apart from that, it's the same aspect of psychology which is taught. And of course, for doing bachelor's in science, you need to do science in 11th and 12th as well. Yeah.
Okay, so what are the best courses for psychology after you complete your 12th?
Courses in the sense, so after you do your 12th, you can do your either BA or BSc in psychology. Is that what the question was?
Yeah, I think that's what they indicated too. I'm not sure who asked this, but if that's not it, just let us know in the chat box. Another question was, can you get a side job while you are doing your BA or MA?
So the thing is, you can. It's not like you cannot. You can, but it depends on the amount of work that you want to put in to find a job. You won't get it easily. This is something that I wanted to bring up initially as well, that in our field, unfortunately, there is a lot of networking. This networking I've been hearing since I was a psychology kid, and all my professors, all my seniors have told me to always have contacts. So if you're in a good relation with your senior, with your teacher, with your professor, or with someone else in the field who you know is working, you can ask them if they can give you job. But it will be very less likely that you would get paid for it because you have just done your BA. Again, it matters if the organization is very good, if the people like your work that you're doing, if the people feel that you are capable enough to being paid, etc. It all depends on those aspects. There's nothing right or wrong, like nothing mandate here. You can get a job while doing your BA and doing your MA side by side. But this is something which my professor personally told me when I started my MA. I thought MA would be like BA, and BA was leaving the psychology aspect. Everything else was kind of like chill and relaxing. Psychology part was very tough, I agree, and I thought that MA would be kind of like that, but it was not at all. MA was really different from BA. We had a lot of assignments, we had a lot of submissions, we had a lot of interactive submissions, we had group assignments, we had a lot of experiments, we had practical testing, psychological testing. So the thing is, you were so preoccupied with these many things, you will actually not find time to actually work somewhere. So this is what my own professor told me, that if it's okay that if you don't want to work right now, I would suggest that you honor your MA right now. You take in the skills, you understand what you want to do after MA, you get the understanding, you get the experience, and after that, if you want to get into work, then get. But if it's possible, then I would say that focus on your MA, because this is some of my friends did as well. They tried to work and do their MA, and some of them really had a very tough experience. There were, cases of burnout and a lot of exhaustion. Some people even left the course because they couldn't handle the stress of it. And it's so ironical because we are studying psychology, we're doing a mental health course. And again, there are issues of burnout and stress and, a lot of anxiety, depression as well. So that's where, even if you're not a professional, even with doing this course, you need to have this balance of work and life. And there's a lot of self-work also that is involved in doing this course. Because, you know, you will study about this disorder, you will feel, "Arey, ye to mujhe ye hai." You will study this, you will feel कि ये मुझे भी है. If you study something about parenting, something about psychoanalysis, Freud, etc., you would feel your whole childhood was just a mess, your parents were bad, etc., etc. There can be so many thoughts coming into you, but a lot of self-work and your own confidence, you know, these terms you might be aware, like, you know, like self-efficacy, self-compassion, a lot to do with self, because these are the things that people won't tell you. Even your professors won't tell you. They'll just keep on teaching. They'll give you assignments. They'll be ye karo, wo karo, ye karo. But at the end of the day, you have to really understand that, do you think that you would be able to handle this course? Would you be able to handle people and, you know, the world that they come in after you pass out? Because suppose specifically I'm in the field of counseling and therapy. If I'm doing someone's therapy, it's like for those 1 hour, 2 hour, I'm stepping out from my own world and I'm in their world. So do you think you would be able to handle that? Do you think that you would be able to help them? So there are many things involved. You can do side-by-side job. Again, it depends if you get a good opportunity and if you can handle it.
Okay, thank you. So again, we've got a question if mind reading is possible. I think we'll keep that for the myth busting round because we have a lot of people asking that question. Another question is, what are the further fields that you can have after doing your BA or MA or MSc in psychology? Like what options open up?
Should I start, Kaman, and then you can pitch in? Yeah, okay. So this is one good thing again about our field in psychology. There are a lot of subfields. You can get into child psychology, you can get into developmental psychology, you can get into teaching as well, you can get into hospitals, you can get into counseling, you can get into sports, you can get into even art therapy, expressive arts therapy, dance therapy. You can get even remedial teaching, special education. You can get into criminal psychology, you can get into forensic psychology. So there are a lot of fields, but again, even though psychology is such a big aspect of our life, its scope is kind of, in a way, we'll say, just emerging for other aspects like sports psychology, forensic psychology. These are emerging right now in India. They are not fully this thing, but there are courses, there are certificate courses, and I think there are even master courses that lead you to, you know, take all these other kind of subfields. And if there's anything else that even Kaman wants to add to this.
No, I think you have really named all the fields. Just that sometimes it's also, you need to recognize what you have learned. Are you able to express it in another field or in another job? Do you think that, for an example does not come to mind right now, but there isn't, like, because I said before, psychology can go across so many different fields and so many different things. You need to identify where can I bring in psychology. You can bring in psychology into social work. You can start your NGO and apply psychology over there. There are so many things that you can do with psychology that you need to explore as well. And then you can go and convince the other person that this is how I will contribute to, you know, this role and bring in my psychology, if necessarily it's not the traditional role for psychologists. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so again, we are getting a lot of questions about entrance exams and college, top colleges. The slides are coming up. We won't miss that for sure. Another question is it double major for with psychology as one of your subjects stressful? So I think Kaman can talk about that.
It was stressful for me, but I don't know about your coping mechanisms with stress. And I'll tell you what was stressful. For me, the abnormal psychology part was stressful. And because the whole reason I wanted to go forward with organizational psychology is because abnormal psychology does not suit me as a person. I am somebody who takes, you know, the things that I hear, what I experience back home, and I'm not talking about breaking the confidentiality contract, but the things about what other people are facing will play on my mind. And if that happens to me, then I won't be able to help them cope with their things. So that's why I kept abnormal and clinical psychology apart. And I went forward with industrial psychology, where it's a little bit more easy with the types of problems that come to you. And that is because it suits me. For somebody else, clinical psychology will suit them, and they'll be like, what is industrial psychology? How do you develop leaders? You're born leaders. So it all depends upon person to person. But having psychology as a subject, and if you do it till you reach your BA, I'm guessing you will like psychology that much, and it shouldn't be as stressful. So yeah, that's it. And double major. So basically, single major has 6 subjects psychology, and out of those 6 subjects, 3 subjects are compulsory into your double major psychology. So that's how it comes. And if I'm not mistaken, like Roshali said, the difference of North and South BA and BSc, the same is with double major with single majors and double majors, not necessarily for psychology, but as just titles in their own, where single majors in the North is like 6 subjects. Single majors in the North is 6 subjects, but double majors is 12 subjects. So basically, double majors has like a higher ranking than single majors. So yeah, that's it.
Okay, would Rishali like to add anything, or is everything covered?
I think there were more questions, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about just this part, about what she
Okay.
spoke about.
Yeah,
So-
I think do you mean double majors as in part majors, right?
Yes.
Yeah, like part psychology,
So,
parts.
so like Command said, it's very different. I think it depends on the institution and which side of the country that you're doing. So in my college in GEAAA, so with part majors, it was like, suppose if you're doing philosophy and psychology as part majors, so you will have, I think, 3 or 4 papers of psychology and 3 or 4 papers of philosophy. So it was like half and half. And if you're doing a single major, like full majors in psychology, then you will have, I think, 6 to 7 all papers of only psychology in your TY. And that is again also very stressful to do 7 papers of whole psychology. So it does get stressful. I think this is relatable to any student doing any course. All your exams, all your syllabus can be stressful, but even this particularly depends how your professor is, how you learn, how is your kind of self-study, etc., and how you're able to cope with it.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is, can you apply for an MSc in psychology after you have done your BA in psychology?
Should I take this? Yeah, okay. So unfortunately, you can't. If you have done your BA in Psych, then you can do your MA in Psych. If you want to do your Masters like MSc, then you need to do your BSc also. It's like the same thing. कि अगर 10th में science लिया, तो 11th, 12th में भी science, and आगे भी science, etc., etc. Like it goes on. Because if you need to do Masters in Science, you need some background of science which you need which comes in with your BSc. This is what I know of. I think if Kamal knows something else, then she can also express that. Yeah,
so I have done a BA in psychology, and my degree is an MSc. But again, this is like a difference in countries where some degrees come under science, even though they don't necessarily hold things to do with science, because I remember learning very little to do with biology when it came to the stress part, right? So it again depends. You need to see really what does it mean, because the MSc never made a difference to me. It was what was in that MSc and if they would accept me at the end of the day or not. So yeah, so you can basically, depends where you're doing it from. Otherwise, if you've done a BA, just go and do your MA and just focus on the subjects that are there. Tomorrow somebody will come and put that also into MSc, and it's going to be the same subjects.
Okay, so which country is best other than India for a job after you do your MA or MSc in psychology? I think Kamal can answer this.
So I won't select the country, I'd select the organization, because I realized that the culture of the organization, the way their recruitment process is, the way they treat their employees, the kind of leaders in the organization, the way they put themselves out to the world and what they actually are, these things are really going to matter, and not exactly which country. And then again, where do you get an opportunity? Are you really going to be able to like study in India and then find a job abroad? Yes, you will be able to. That's where your networking comes in again. That's where your internships, what you have done previously, comes in. So you will, but I'd say focus on what your job role is going to be, where is it going to, well, like which organization is it going to be, and then go to the country later where maybe you want to check the weather, you want to check the type of people who are going to be there, how far is it from India, all that. And yeah, Roshali, you can take over.
Yeah, so particularly with the aspect of like counseling and, working in therapy aspect. So as far as I am aware, many countries and abroad, they have a licensing program that you need to have a license. You need to get approved by their government and their organizations before you start working. Unfortunately, we don't have that here. We are, from what I have heard from my own professors, we are in that process. Soon an organization or a counseling or a council is going to be set up in India as well, but it's going to take some years. Maybe by the time you guys graduate or enter, the work field, maybe it might be available. But yeah, in India right now, if you want to work as a counselor or as a psychotherapist, you don't need a license per se. But in abroad, in many countries, you do need to pass their entrance exam and pass their licensing exams.
Okay, so the next question is there a difference between a psychiatrist and a psychologist? And if there is, what is the difference?
I'll start. Yeah, okay. So see, the major difference is that a psychiatrist, this person will do their medical degree, they'll do their MBBS and MD, but a psychologist they just need to do their either MA or BSc or MA and MSc. The major difference is that a psychiatrist can prescribe you medicines, a psychologist cannot prescribe you medicine. That is totally unethical. If they do that, they can actually be jailed. So these are some, so according to the Mental Health Act of our country, which is I think revised in 2017. So a psychologist cannot prescribe medicines at all, a psychiatrist can. To become a psychiatrist, you need to again do the whole medical thing. You need to become a resident doctor, all those years of medicine that you do in any other field of medical. But in psychologists, you don't need to do the whole medical aspect.
Okay, would Kamal like to add anything, or has Roshali covered everything?
She's been very clear. I don't need to add anything.
Okay, great. So we generally just hear about clinical psychology, counseling psychology, things like that. There are a lot more fields other than that. So can you talk more about the different types of psychology, whether it's child psychology, pet psychology, anything like that?
So I think, like we said, psychology ranges through so many fields. I think sports psychology right now is something that's in my mind after the Olympics that took place. And what I was thinking was when PV Sindhu was fighting for this, to get into the finals for the gold, there was a moment where we knew she couldn't recover, or we could see like the mental breakdown on her face, right? So I was wondering, what would the importance of sports psychologists play over there, right? Would she be able to talk to them and then recover in the next 2 minutes? And I'm pretty sure she would, considering how good they can be. And abroad, they almost always have a sports psychologist on their team. If not two, definitely one. So that's another growing field, considering how we've performed in sports in these years. I do believe that there will be sports psychology as another emerging field. Then getting into criminal psychology also will play an important role if it doesn't already, because these psychologists, they normally deal with delinquents and how to get out maybe information from them, how to support them better. So there also criminal psychology is a growing field. So again, it depends from country to country and how you really take it. Now I've forgotten the question. Was that answering it? And Rishali can take over.
Yes, the question was the different types of psychology fields.
Yeah, so like I said previously, there are many subfields. So particularly if you want to get into teaching, you can become like an assistant professor after completing the NET, which is the exam for to become a professor in the field of psychology and any other area, but to work in a college. Specifically, if you want to become an assistant professor in college, you have child psychology, you have developmental psychology. Both of these things kind of overlap, but they're basically about the developmental milestones and the developmental disorders or issues that might come up with children or individuals. So let's say the autism spectrum, ADHD, then we have even anxiety, depression in kids, pediatric, and any other developmental aspects. Apart from that, we have forensic psychology, which I am not really well versed about. I just know that there are some courses, and I had done a short workshop in it, which was basically about, so suppose if there is a crime scene involved, then how can you bring your psychology skills in that? So, bringing your non-verbal skills, like, how to interpret those skills. Suppose if you're going to investigate a scene, suppose if you're going to meet a criminal or victim, whatever. So at that moment, how you can bring your psychological skills. And then we have sports psychology, like Aman said, and you also can you can also become a researcher. So you can become like a qualitative or a quantitative researcher, because this is something which I wish people would have told me when I was doing my psychology, but research is a very important part. Even in BA, I think I co-authored 2 research papers with my friends, but in masters, even though BA it was optional, but in masters it is compulsory. I think it was like around 200 marks or something. I had a dissertation, this thing, where I had to do my own research. So after doing that, if you like that, you can get into the field of research. You can do a PhD as well. Apart from these, yeah, there is also art-based therapies. There is dance. There is expressive arts movement. There are speech and language therapy. There is occupational therapist, which is different from an occupational psychologist, because occupational, the term is only occupational therapist. These people work with people who want to again get back into society. Suppose people who have had an accident, some body parts are not working, maybe they are not able to move their hands, like etc. Or suppose even with your fine motor skills, or even suppose with children with autism or ADHD, Down syndrome, etc. So these therapists help these kind of people to, help them regain some strength, to be able to do some aspects of their daily living. Because there can be a situation where someone has reached a point, where they can't even take a bath or they can't even eat properly and they will need assistance. So in this area, occupational therapist does come in. Even people, suppose if you have LD, which is learning disability, even occupational therapist and remedial education works in that. So all these areas are again involving. So I particularly know about the field of mental health. So in this, we have again art-based and speech therapist, occupational therapist, and becoming a teacher. Yeah, I think, yeah, you can also become a scientist as well. If you want to go into totally science field, you can get into experimental psychology, you can get into cognitive psychology. I think I've covered everything that I can recall.
Okay, great. So the next question is, can we do therapy as a psychiatrist after we have completed our master's in psychiatry?
Right. So I am not particularly well versed with the syllabus and what they do, but psychiatrists, they can do therapy, but this is what I have experienced and heard from my own professors in the field and my own seniors, etc. is when it comes to therapy, psychology students, like psychologists and psychotherapists, counseling students, they are taught more in depth about therapy, more in terms of a biopsychosocial model, which is you're not just looking at the biological aspect, but even the surrounding, the social aspect, how the person is, the person's personality, what has the person gone through, any trauma, abuse, etc. But what I know about, I might be wrong as well, but people who purely do psychiatry, they are more about the severe clinical disorders. So you have psychosis, you have clinical depression, you have personality disorders. So these areas of psychology are these professionals work with. They may or may not do therapy. They may actually, so like I said, it's a teamwork. So suppose if you're working in a hospital will have a psychiatrist, a clinical psychologist, and a counseling psychologist as well. So three of them will work together. A psychiatrist can do the diagnosing, they can give this prescription, they can give the medicine. A clinical psychologist can also, with the help of the counseling psychologist, both of them can do testing and therapy aspect. So it's not necessary that a psychiatrist will do or want to do therapy. They can pass on that role to other people who are more well versed with this.
Okay, great. Next question is, would international French or German courses help us when we are going abroad to find jobs or things like that? I think 𝐬𝐻𝐻 would know better about this.
I think it definitely would in any kind of job, right? If somebody would come to India and say, I know Hindi, can I get a job? We'd be very happy. But so again, over here, it would give you an upper hand. And specifically when you mentioned about Germany and France, considering their need for students and people to settle down over there, your chances will be higher. And networking again plays a very important role here. And Rishali said before, like she mentioned contacts, right? But even if you don't know the person, message them, you read about them, you message them saying, okay, I see you're a senior recruitment consultant. It is like this in my country. I would like to know more about how it is in your country. Will we be able to connect anytime soon? This is a little diverting from the topic, but it is essential for getting you a job. And especially when you don't know exactly how things might be working over there, always show your curiosity. Like, I think curiosity is a very important skill. And I don't mean like force curiosity into you, but that genuine curiosity, because then there will be like, we've got some really interesting questions coming by, and that really shows a level of curiosity in psychology. So go for it, but don't get into the forced question that you want to ask, and don't be obsessive about it. Genuinely ask what you want to ask. And yeah, that's it. Otherwise, learning German and French, as many languages that you can learn, not only broadens your thinking capacity like we know from childhood, but it will also be very beneficial. Yes.
Okay, so Rishali mentioned forensic psychology earlier. So what is the difference between criminal and forensic psychology?
Okay, so I'm not really well aware about the difference and the main criteria of work that is involved. I just know like the overview basics about it. I might be wrong as well. And if you want to know more about it, even I can do my own research work. And maybe if I'm allowed to give my email ID, you can email me and I can give you more information about this later. But as for right now, I just know that mainly forensic psychology. Wait, give me a minute. So the major difference can be that with criminal psychology, you need to even work with, suppose if you're working with, basically because it's criminal psychology, you do work with criminals. So it involves another kind of training where they would actually train you to how to counsel, or suppose a criminal has done this crime, whatever. It might be required by the court or by the hospital or whatever is the necessary requirements at that moment, where you have, as a criminal psychologist, you would need to counsel that person. So that would be a different area of training, because you would also need to, have that key, you are not scared. You need to have that level of lower your inhibitions or remove your biases, because sometimes, these questions pop up. Suppose if this is a criminal who is a murderer, and suppose this person needs to go for court, etc. And then before that, you need to counsel this person, you need to help this person, because suppose if this person had a panic attack. So at that moment is where you can come in. But again, I think that involves a different kind of training, which I am not really well versed about, and I'm really sorry about that. If you want to know more about it, even I can, like I said, I can do my own research work and I can get back to you.
Yeah, so I think the questions that the speakers are right now not aware of, we will give out their email IDs and you all can contact them later for the same. Another question is, what are the main tasks of a psychologist? Like what exactly, from a day-to-day point of view, what exactly would you be doing?
I'll start. So even with psychologists, it depends on what institution and what area that you want to get into. Suppose right now I'm a counseling psychologist right now. So with me, my daily work will depend on what institution and what area of work and go in. Suppose if I want to become a school counselor, school psychologist, then that will involve more with working with children, working with more testing their career aptitudes, even their career guidance and etc. But suppose if I'm doing my own personal practice, or if I'm doing my own personal practice, and that will involve me taking sessions, me taking therapy, me conducting workshops, and also side by side enhancing my own skills, like doing side by side other courses, other certification areas, etc. Our field is actually never ending in terms of education and learning. This is very similar to actually a field in doctorate, like in medicine, because even a doctor needs to be updated, right? What's the new, like suppose the doctors who didn't know about COVID-19, they would need to suddenly know everything about it, because that was the need for the hour. So even with our field, like how physical health is, even with mental health, you need to be updated with what's new coming, what are the new research happening in abroad. Suppose right now there's DSM-5, maybe a DSM-6 is going to come out soon. So information about that, information about new therapy courses. Like I said, now there are postmodern approaches now, like narrative therapy, more insight-oriented work. There is ACT. So you need to be updated and well-versed, and as well as you need to keep yourself, in simple terms, modern, because the world is also changing. It's possible that suppose in terms of modern art, you being open with the kind of attitudes and values that even the client comes up with. So it's kind of like a holistic work. You need to work on yourself as well. As a therapist, you will also have a therapist. So it's not like just because you are a therapist, you know everything about yourself, you can solve your problems on your own with self-work and self-help. It does not work like that. You would also require a therapist. You would also require supervision. Supervision is really important, especially in the early years when you would be working. So let's say even for 5 to 6 years, me as a young counseling psychologist would require supervision from another professional. I would also, if I need, I would also require therapy for my own self. So as a whole, these are kind of the things that are involved in our field. It's similar to how a doctor operates in the terms that they take clients and etc. They work in hospitals, or they have their own clinic, or they might work in NGOs. It's similar to us. The only thing is that we work with the mental health aspect.
Okay, great. So these are all the questions that we have got for now. We have got a few other questions, but that will come in the upcoming slides. Is there anything that the speakers would like to add as far as this slide is concerned? Okay, so I think we're done with this slide. We'll move on to the next two slides. So from here on, for the next two slides, I'll be taking over. So since this is a more newer part of it, our speakers, since they completed all of this a few years ago, they wouldn't be knowing about this, right? So these part I have done research about, I've learned about it, and I'm going to be speaking to you all. So now these entrance exams that you all can see on the screen, these entrance exams are, so how we have CLAT for law, we have JEE, NEET, things like that. So psychology does not have a compulsory entrance exam that everyone would have to give. These are entrance exams that you would have to give to get into certain colleges. So like we can see the Symbiosis entrance test, that is for getting into Symbiosis. We see BHU UET, that is for getting into the Banaras Hindu University. So all of these entrance exams that you can see on your screen are only for certain universities or colleges. It is not a constant thing that every person has to attempt or give. So yeah, that's as far as entrance exams goes. You guys can note this down. And I will also send you on our psychology group a picture of this slide and the next slide, which is the top colleges in Mumbai and in India. So yeah, these, and also a question is there that which are the most important entrance exams. You can't say it is based on which college you would prefer to go to, which college you would like to go to. That is what will base the most importance on it. If some symbiosis is not something you want to do, then it won't be important to you at all, right? So these are just the colleges that are there, the entrance exams that are needed for the colleges, and you can check them out. They are available on the internet if you want to do more research into them. So the main subjects that would be for these entrance exams would be like current affairs, of course, psychology, a little bit of logic. It's different for all of them. Y'all can do research on that as well if y'all are interested in this. We'll move on to the next slide, which is the top colleges in Mumbai. So we have St. Xavier's. I'm sure everyone knows about that. GEAAA Hind, which Rishali did her undergraduate from GEAAA Hind, and Sophia College for Women, which Kaman did her undergraduate from there. These three are very famous colleges. I'm sure all of y'all have heard about it. As far as top colleges in India, you all can see Amity University. Their colleges, universities are spread all over the country, but the Noida one especially is very good for psychology. Then we have the University of Mumbai and the University of Delhi. So many colleges are affiliated under the University of Mumbai. If you all didn't know, Sophia College as well as St. Xavier's and GEAAA Hind, I'm not sure about GEAAA Hind, sorry. St. Xavier's and Sophia's were affiliated under the University of Mumbai, but now they have recently gotten their autonomy. This was a few years ago. So they are no longer under University of Mumbai, but there are several other universities under the University of Mumbai that are extremely famous, as well as Delhi. So there's the Ferguson College in Pune, as well as the Banaras Hindu University in Varanasi, which we saw on the earlier side. They have an entrance exams for psychology. So you all can check these out. These are the top colleges that we have. Next, we are going to move on to the internship experiences that our speakers have. I'm going to stop sharing the screen over here and our speakers can continue speaking. I think we can start with Rishali.
Just 1 second. I actually want to add something with that path to psychology slide. Can you bring that again?
Yes, just a second. Yes. Yeah, it's sorry. Rishali,
Yeah.
you can go ahead.
Yeah. So I just wanted to remind this again. So if you want to do clinical, if you want to work as a clinical psychologist, you need to do an MPhil. And you need to do an MPhil after your master's. And from what I've heard from my peers and professors as well, it's difficult to get into a good MPhil program because there are limited MPhil programs in India. But there are. I'm not really well versed with what are the most prominent ones, but there are. From what I'm aware, the MPhil program is also gonna maybe get scraped. So if you're planning to it, I would say wait, do your own research as well before getting into anything. This is for any course, this is for any college, any institution, any course. Please do your own research as well, because it really matters not only what subjects are taught, but what is the institution like, what are the institution faculty like. With a field like psychology, you really need to understand the concepts, and you won't unless you have good people teaching you, making you understand it, making a more practical and experiential understanding than just theoretical, than just learning the definitions, etc. Also, if possible, ask your seniors who have been in these colleges, do your own research work, ask experts in those fields, ask people who are already working. I know it's double work, but this is the work that really you need to do if you want, if you feel like this is the college for you, if this is the course that you really want to do. And apart from clinical psychologists, you can do like we said, BA and BSc, and then MA and MSc in counseling and even industrial psychology and the other subfields of psychology as well. Some of the essential preferred skills that I personally feel in the field of counseling and therapy is that you really need those, skills of empathy. I don't know if many of you have been, aware about Carl Rogers and his principles, which is about empathy, non-judgmental, having a unconditioned positive regard, and genuineness. So I know these things are very easy to understand, or they would feel like this is very typical and very cliche, but they are really important to form the kind of therapeutic relationship or alliance with your client. This is I'm particularly mean with the mental health field, which is, So the skills, of empathy, of being caring, being kind enough, and specifically patience. There can be situations, where what is happening, but your client does not know. The client is not ready to know. The client is showing resistance. So at that moment, you can't just shout at your client and you can be frustrated, this is happening, but this is wrong, this is right. You can't do that. You have to be patient as well. You can just nudge the client, or probe a little where just your whole goal of therapy would be to help the client understand, help the, as the name suggests of this workshop, inside the main therapy with the main goal of therapy is to actually let the clients gain insight, let the clients gain their agency. So, skills like being patient, being curious, you have to be, when you're talking to your client, you need to be curious about their life, because they understand when you are just, because even they are their own person, they have filled their whole life that you are not aware about. They will just give you, some glimpses of it, but you don't know the whole picture. So it really matters the kind of relationship that you form. So your social skills, your communication, especially active listening, apart from saying, but to know to listen when the client is saying something, to make aware, to understand the personal messages that the client is giving in, the messages that the client is saying, to understand the hidden meaning behind it, to listen what the client is really saying, to being with the client in that movement. And apart from this is to the non-verbal skills, which is, so suppose the client is saying something, but the hands, like, I'm moving my hands. This is kind of a non-verbal cues where I'm trying to not only express myself through my words, but I'm trying to express myself with my body language as well. So, to keep a point of that, to have, to being in that movement, to being aware. I know all these seem like very easy, ki, ho jayega karke, but when you are in that situation, when you're with that client, it's difficult to, be this person where you can be that, that person for the client, you can be their own world. And so it's not like you need to know these skills very well or they are compulsory, mandatory. It's a journey. With all the skills, the counseling skills that you learn, it's a whole journey. The counseling skills that I know right now, I need to enhance them more. I need to develop them more for my further progression, further therapy, career, etc. And yeah, so these are some of the skills that I wanted to talk about. So it's not like you need to, so suppose if you feel that you're not a kind person right now, or if you feel that you're not empathetic or you can't listen to people, that does not mean that you won't be able to do psychology. You will be able to do. It will take time. It will take time to honor those skills and gradually get into the process. Yeah, I think this was what I wanted to add.
Okay, I think Hemant also wanted to add something.
Yes, please. So like Rishali said, these skills, you are not going to get it as soon as you get your master's degree and you walk into the office or the space with your client. It's something that I can say you start today, right now. Like, be patient with the people in your house. Then actively listen to what other people are saying. Observe people around you, like genuinely observe people around you and see what they are doing. And when you see them doing something, don't form a judgment of, oh, I think they're doing this because of this. It's not how it works. Be patient, see what are they doing later. And you need to be consistent. You cannot say, like, today this person has come, in 3 weeks I'll get done with him. It does not work like that. It takes you months, sometimes it might even take you years. And the relationship that you build with your client is here, because once you build that relationship, you build that rapport with your client, is when the word spread that this is the person I want to go to again. I felt good, I felt nice. You yourself cannot be somebody else outside that door and again inside. You need to be your authentic self. Authentic is literally the word. And it's not going to come easy, but it's psychology and you have to give it your all, like any other field. And yeah, it's a people's thing. It's literally a people's thing. Like, I don't know how psychologists are doing it over video call these days, virtually, because it's noticing what the other person, you never know, they might have their own hack that they have come up with. But again, like, non-judgmental, be your authentic self, and just build that rapport with the person and be patient. Yeah.
Just
Okay,
one
so
more, just last thing I wanted to add to this.
please go
So,
ahead.
we've been talking a lot about what kind of services or what kind of person you would be with the client. But apart from all this, it's really important that you give yourself that importance, that acknowledge as well. So just because you're a therapist or you're a psychologist, that does not mean that you won't get angry or you won't have frustration, that you won't cry, that your life is all sort, you won't have fights, you won't have breakups, nothing like that. Your life will be same. All the human, you are a human as well, all the human experiences, all the human emotions, thoughts will be similar, you will get. So that's what I keep on saying, that the part of self, you need to have that self compassion for you as well. Suppose if you're, if you're able to be empathetic for your client, that's very good, that's wonderful, that is what you need for this field. But you also need to be empathetic for your own self. Suppose if with this client it's not working out, that's okay, there is no best fit. It's possible that the client and you, that the relationship that you found will not work. It's possible that maybe that the approach that you are using, the client is not comfortable with. It's possible that maybe the severity or the intensity of the issues is something which is not under your control. That's okay, you can always give referrals, you can pass on client to someone else, but that does not necessarily mean that you are bad at your job. This is something which I really learned and understood in masters. It's like, it's not just for people all the time. You don't just have to be for people, you have to be for your own self as well. You need to give that self-confidence, that self-efficacy you need in your own self as well. So yeah, I think I'll stop.
Okay, so what are some psychology books that you would recommend for research?
I'll say grab whatever you get, because you're going to learn something new from each and every one of them, but also be sensible as to which author, because somebody might say, okay, like you said, can we read minds? Somebody might say that they might have their own technique, but that's not like a part of psychology. So like, I'd say grab whatever you get and go forward with it. Yeah, read as much as you can.
Some books, so for some particular books that I know about that we had in my masters, I think there were books by A.K. Singh. I don't know if people you know about, but I think that was a really good book. I think they have explained everything in easy steps, and especially like for a beginner, like I don't like research per se. For a person like me, I felt like that book was really helpful. Then we had 𝐿𝐴𝐚𝐿, but please use 𝐿𝐴𝐚𝐿 with caution. It has a lot of mistakes also. So even, while your professor is teaching you, she or he will help you understand, what's the issue, or don't necessarily say what the book is saying. That's what Command said, that you also need to be cautious with the kind of author, the kind of book that you're using, because some authors have different, so with statistics and research, some authors have the different way of explaining and doing the things. Some authors may have different ways. So yeah, and you can, and Google is also sometimes the best help. Sometimes if you just need a simple understanding of a research tool or something, these YouTube videos like how to use SPSS or how to do correlation, comparative, etc. Even these things can help you.
Okay, great. So Jumana, your question, we'll get to it when we talk about internships, because I'm sure Rushali will have something to say about it. So can you elaborate on behavioral science and behavioral economics?
I wouldn't know about this subject, I'm sorry. But I'll note it down, and if Rushali doesn't have anything to add, we can always get back to you.
Yeah, I think similar to what Kaman said. From what I'm mostly aware about behavioral science. I'm not able to recall particularly about behavioral economics. I think it was something in my TY, but I'm not able to recall it right now. But behavioral science is basically related to, so just to give you an example, so with behavioral science, you have behavioral therapy, you have behavioral principles, you have behavioral assessment. So basically this area of model, this approach focuses more on the behavior aspect than necessarily your emotions and thoughts. So everything in mental health and everything about psychology in terms of mental health looks at three aspects, which is your cognition, your mind, cognitive thoughts, your affective, which is your emotions aspect, and your behavior, your actions, etc. So behavioral science, particularly in terms of psychology and mental health, it works related to focusing on your behavior. So we have behavioral therapy, which involves, it involves aspects of assertiveness training, social skills training. It involves your reinforcement, all your behavioral theories, which is social conditioning, classical conditioning, operant conditioning, your social learning theory, Bandura, all those things that you have done in your basics. It's mostly using those therapy, using those models, and developing techniques and therapy models depending on those areas. So suppose just a simple example, suppose with a kid who is on the spectrum, like with autism. So they actually, research has shown that if you use aspects of CBT and BT, CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy and BT is behavioral therapy. These aspects have been shown to work with teaching normal social skills. So, with social skills training, assertiveness training, even to just simply to how to eat your food, how to be around people. So behavioral aspect is basically, in simple words, related to your behaviors and the actions that you do. But this is again with the knowledge that I have. I'm not particularly sure about the behavioral economics aspect. And if you want to know more about it, like Aman said, we can later email you about it. Yeah.
Yes, we will give out their emails at the end of the session, and I'll put up their emails in the group as well. So if you'll have any questions, y'all can email them later as well. So now I think we'll move on to the internship experiences. So we have Rishali, who has done internships at NGOs, government schools, as well as government schools. I'm so sorry. Government schools, NGOs. And we have Kamand, who has also done in her internships in a very corporate place, which is Tata Powers as well as Siemens India. So we have both sides of the spectrum. So yeah, we're very happy to talk about it. Can Rishali please start, and then we'll move on to Kamand.
Yeah. So my internship experiences have been with government schools, with NGOs, and with counseling organizations. So since I've just passed out with my master's, and if there would have been no COVID, I would have more experience, because again, with COVID, it was all online. And even so, with my master's degree, the program as well involved an internship program of 1 year. So my MA2 would have been full internship and training, but because there was COVID, you couldn't go to schools and organizations. It became all online, and it was difficult to do. So particularly apart from these internship, so my college made me do mentorship programs, which is basically me working under a professional, under a psychologist, and me taking clients therapy, and the professional doing the supervision for the same. So with my experience with schools, so I've learned, as my job has been with caretaking, to take care of the children, to handle the children, even to educate them. Simply simple subjects like maths, English, history, etc. So this has been with NGOs, and it has been mainly about, so the NGOs that I worked in, it involved mostly children who are underprivileged or who had issues with disability, etc. So it was more about holistic, caretaking, just, making them feel calm, making them better, making them feel welcome, teaching them. So this was my with NGOs. With government schools, I particularly worked as an educator. So where I was teaching them, so that's what you see in our field. You would also involve a lot of internships that involves teaching aspects. So in here, I was teaching them particularly for the 10th board. But it was again looking at from the psychological aspect, where you need to be again, calm, patient. You need to teach them slowly, because again, these kids had certain, I don't want to always use the word disability, because I feel I don't want to label the children, but they had some kind of limitations or shortcomings that required extra attention or extra special attention. So that's what I was trying to help them in. In terms of counseling organizations, the counseling centers, I took certain clients, certain pro bono clients. Pro bono means that the therapy was free of cost, because I'm still a trainee. I can't charge for my therapy. So they were pro bono sessions. And whatever therapy counseling that I did, those were supervised by my like the mentees, the mentors. And overall, the experience, honestly, with all of these internships was different. And it was really fulfilling. But if I feel like the internship that really made me understand that what I want to do after my master's was with this mentorship program that my college did, where I've worked under a professional. So she gave me her own experience, her own knowledge, you know, what is the practicality, what happens when you pass out and what happens when you're taking clients in real life, what different kind of clients you can get, how do you handle them. But again, you know, this was not in very in depth because this was part of the training program. This was not in fully 100% in depth. So again, you know, I still need to do more courses, more training, specializations, etc. But overall, yeah, like I said, all of these experiences were different. They really helped me understand what I want to do. Even though I did 2 types of internships that involved teaching, I've understood that teaching is something not necessarily that I want to do. That's why I haven't even applied for the NET, which is for the assistant professor, the entrance exam, because I feel you can call it my calling or something. I don't know what words that you want to bring into, but I feel that I would be more able to be in a space where I am using my own skills of me as a person and me helping individual in any way that I can in terms of, you know, involving therapy and counseling and psychotherapy, etc. And if you have any particular questions to ask about internships, then you can, because I can't recall everything about it right now.
Yeah, so one question that we got was, what are the important roles that a psychologist would play in humanitarian aid work?
Right. So, you know, in humanitarian aid work comes your community health, your community mental health. So as far as I'm concerned, there are actually even particular courses with community mental health where they involve how you're working. So you as a psychologist will need to work with social workers, you need to work with
Psychology.
right. So internship ideas. So, you know, I keep on saying that it depends, but it really depends. It depends on your where you did from your bachelor's from, and are you doing your internship after bachelor's, or are you doing your internship after master's? So some internships can involve working with NGOs. It can involve working with government schools, private schools. It can also involve as a trainee in hospitals. It can also involve training in international schools. It can also involve rehabilitation centers. It can involve working with, and you know, apart from mental health, if you want to work on again industrial aspects, so you can. So again, this would be, I think Kaman would be able to more elaborate on this. But in terms of you want to know where areas you can do, so there are, like I said, schools, organizations, hospitals, corporate world, yeah, these many.
Okay, so Bhumi, you have asked a question. I'm sorry, I'm not able to understand the context. She said some success psychologists. If you are maybe able to unmute and explain what you're trying to say, that would be great. Okay, I think we'll go on with Yaman then until we get a response from her.
Right. So talk about my internship. You'll already know where I did it and how it was again networking. And I was very lucky to land those internships. One was during the summer. So I did miss out on my summer vacation and I stayed back to do my internship. So again, that sacrifice, and there are things that come in where it won't always be good. And I did it to get the experience, to get a little more knowledge about how, what exactly do they say when they are saying they are putting in interventions. So learning for an organization is very important. And there are, most organizations have learning strategies in place. Okay, so they have softwares like Skillsoft. They have, Skillsoft is one that comes to my mind right now, which is very famous, where there are different kinds of videos, courses that people can go through to learn more about how to become an effective leader, how to handle stress at the workplace, how to cope with, you know, things that are happening at home, how to talk to your boss, and how to perform more effectively. So that is the learning aspect, in which I did very little work over there, trying to identify, are the people really making use of these learning platforms? These learning platforms are in place, but are they being effective? Is the organization getting investment on the money? Is the organization getting return on the money that they have already invested? And it's very difficult to record that, but you can see a difference when you do a research. So for example, my research project right now was kind of similar, where I was evaluating a learning platform. So the whole research can only take place. You can't just take an interview. This is a very important part of psychology in general. You can't just take something and put it somewhere. You have to know why you are doing it. So I might say that the people are stressed. It's not necessary that they are stressed because of the workplace, or because of the ongoing pandemic, or because of something happening at home. They may be stressed about some of the health issues that they have, and they have not really shared it with anybody else. So you need to carry out research wherein you say, okay, this was something that was happening. The stress levels were high, the anxiety levels were high, and the resilient levels were low when I carried out this research. So according to this data, I am going to place this intervention. Why am I placing this intervention? So for example, I will place in an intervention of bite-sized videos that every month or every week, you say, the employee is being introduced to this bite-sized video. Now, why bite-sized video? Because of the fast-moving world, people are in the car these days, or they are just sitting at home. Their attention span is very low. So they want something that is catchy. And so that's why the bite-sized videos. And then after the intervention, after 2 to 3 months, you again give the same questionnaire or something else to again record the people's responses. And then you see if the resilient levels have gone high. Okay, the resilient levels might not have gone high, but their anxiety and depression levels might have dropped. So accordingly, you again refine the whole thing. So my internship kind of held that, but to do with leadership. But unfortunately, I did not have a way to evaluate the whole process. I just collected data, analyzed a little, and suggested my interventions, right? Again, there comes your work, or the internship can include organizing, because we are part of HR, organizing events, then finding out, okay, which job role is changing, or are there job roles that are merging together? Or we don't need 5 people for doing this one job. We just need this one guy who can handle the other 5 jobs. Then what happens to the other 4 guys? Do we just fire them, or do we just ask them to leave and find for a new job? It's not ethical, I feel, but they should be given a chance to develop their talent. Again, so what do you think are the upcoming jobs that these people we can develop their talent for? Then the recruitment. Is the recruitment process fair right now? And are y'all keeping up? Like, are y'all recognizing the new emerging roles? Then for the new emerging roles, what kind of people do you need? And how are you going to train those people? Then when new employees come into the organization, how are you going to tell them about the organization? How are you going to explain them about the processes? Introduce them to other teams of the people in the organization. So these are some things that we did, and are part of my internship, and part of a role of a occupational psychologist as well. And then comes again developing leaders in the organization, identifying them, then trying to make your processes smoother. Then another thing that is very much in the market is having an open environment. So we're always used to having blocks. So you enter a workplace, everybody's sitting in their cubicle, you can't see anybody's face, everybody has this softboard around them, they're into their own thing. But what if you remove them? It's a more open space, it's more brighter, you can see people, there is transparency, transparency. You are not like, oh my God, are these two gossiping something about me? So all these things take place. But then again, if you want an open office, what kind of people are they? If they're working in customer service, everybody's going to be talking on the phone. You cannot have an open space because the voices are going to clash. So they're cubicles. But then, for example, if you have an HR job and everybody's just on their laptop, they would like to chit chat one at some point or the other, then that is fine. Open office can be there. But once you put the open office, ask the people, are they comfortable with it? Why aren't they comfortable? What changes can be made? Because there are some people who are shy and who might not like that. So where do these elements come in? So yeah, these are few things where my internship was concerned. Yeah, that's it. If there are other questions that come in. I've written it down. Another thing that is very famous these days is my office the best place to work? So is it easily, do I like coming to office? Can I easily take leaves or do a work from home? Or what do I get coffee at my office? Do I get like soup in a mug? Is somebody coming to like collect something after me? Do I have a printer machine right like on the same floor where I am working? All these things play an important role. And why employees, again, when I said choose your organization, because these things play a very important role. Nowadays, employees or recent graduates want the office to be a fun place to work. However, would you be comfortable in such a workspace if tomorrow everybody is going to office in like jeans and a simple top? Would you have the motivation to work? Not necessarily. You would want to like wear a shirt and be properly dressed. At least that's how I am motivated sometimes. So yeah, that's it. If there's any other questions or if anything that I've missed out.
Yeah, I think if it's not a problem, I'd like to add to something Kaman was saying, what she's saying about the way you're dressed or even the environment of your office. It shouldn't feel like you are sitting at home, because you won't have the inspiration or the push to work. You will feel like you're at home, you'll be in your comfort space, you won't want to work as much. So even that is something that is important to keep in mind while you are doing things like that. So a question that we got was, what internships and volunteer work can be done while we are doing our BSc in psychology?
I think volunteer work is very much welcome. You need to find the right place. So I know at Sophia College, students were given opportunities. We have preschool and everything. So students were given opportunities. If you want, you can go and volunteer these many hours in a week. So if you search, we have the blind school at Worli. There are a lot of these places that accept volunteers, but they don't necessarily advertise it. You need to approach them and say, I'm looking for something like this, and why not? I think help is always welcome, but just accept the experience in return and no monetary benefits. If Rishali would like to add on.
Yeah, I think I really wanted to add this point. I think apart from just doing your internship, this is something which I wish someone had told me when I was in this stage, finding internships, finding volunteering work, etc. is that is not the only thing. So, when I was studying, there was a competition. I can't imagine how it must be right now for everyone, to just make the CV the best, just make the resume the best, work this institution, do that volunteering, do this internship. It's like a race, it's like a jungle, and it can be really exhausting. I remember those days where I would feel like my friend is doing this and this, but I'm not doing this. So this is something personally that I would like to bring, is that please, again, ask yourself that why do you want to do this internship? Do you want to do this because your friend is doing, or do you want to do this because you want to enhance your skills, get more experience, get more training, etc.? Because then the aspect of your values come in. That's what do you value? So even in the profession of psychology, what do you value? Suppose I can be as a person who value independence a lot. Being your own person, being an independent person. Just an example. it's possible that these values can clash with my client who has values of more being collective, being more together, have more family, family oriented values. So at that point, you need to understand that you don't, it's okay that you have different values. Everyone, we all can't be same. But then you have to understand that where acceptance of those values and not to let those values clash and not to let those values bias you. Similarly, even with clients, even with finding an institution, finding where you want to work, your internships, etc., try to find what are the values and what are the ethical concentrations of your institution. There are so many, unfortunately, there are so many organizations right now in India who are not ethical at all. Apart from organizations, even there are psychologists who are not ethical at all, where without training they are giving therapy and it's not appropriate in any way. They are actually doing more harm than good. So it's really important, even with your education, the college that you want to go into, it's important that those values are, at least in some way, they are similar. You are able to understand where the college is coming from. You're able to understand like what is the mentality of the faculty, of the students, etc. I know it's very easy to say ye research kar lo. It is tough, but at least if it's possible, if you get an opportunity to ask the seniors, to ask the previous batch, to ask if it's possible to check reviews, if it's possible to ask the faculty, anything like that, I would say please do your work. Same with your education and similarly with internships. So it's really important that the way you're working is, suppose it's possible that suppose you have gotten this internship, you're very happy, and you come to know after a month or two that this organization is actually fake, it's unethical. So the thing is that it can, if someone if it's broadcasted, if it's on the news, etc., it's possible that it can actually dampen your resume, your own experience, when you further go to job, it can cause some issues. So I would just say that please check what organizations, what people that you want to work under, because it really matters.
Yeah, so whenever you are giving like internships or something, we are lucky enough to have LinkedIn, to have Instagram. So look into the people you are being hired by, do some research on them, because especially right now, it's very common for things like, not common, but like it does happen a lot compared to the earlier times. So just look into what you're doing. So yeah, I'll just check if we have any messages. Okay, so we have no questions. One question that we had was, can you name some successful psychologists that are there? If y'all would know of anyone, y'all could name someone. That's the question that I was a bit confused about.
Should I start?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I will have a lot to say with this. So, the thing with successful thing is it's a very subjective thing. So even personally, as you as a psychologist, do you measure your success with the amount of clients you have? Do you measure your success with how your clients feel? Do you measure your success with the years of experience? Do you measure how many money you're earning in? These many parameters can come in picture when you're actually trying to understand, is this person successful or not? For me personally, being new in the field and knowing, working under professions and getting my own exposure with different kind of people, I've understood that apart from the kind of years, like since the years you're working, or apart from where you have done your education, apart from how much you're charging, you're earning, it's really important that the client and what kind of relationship that you form with the client is very important, because in our field, word of mouth really plays a lot. Because people don't necessarily, people are not open, because of the mental health stigma, people won't openly Google ki psychologist near me or therapist near me, and they won't even actually ask people. We are in this field, we might be more open to ask our professors or ask people, ki I want to do this therapy, can you give me this person's number, etc. But people are hesitant about it. So it's really important that, wait, I forgot the flow of thought I was saying.
I think it's really important to be connected with your client, maintain that relationship, because by word of mouth, it's going to be, it will spread by word of mouth. And again, people are discussing something that they cannot discuss with somebody else. There's a reason why they're coming to you. So keep that confidential, keep it to yourself, but be in a certain way that they will trust you and they will come back to you and they will send somebody else as well. It's very personal. You all have to be very careful with the way you all maintain that relationship with somebody else.
And yeah, just one more thing I wanted to add. Personally, if I would like to find psychologists who are successful, I would really like to look at are they ethical or not? Because this is something which really keeps coming in our field, even though we have an ethical code of conduct that we have to follow. Similarly, what doctors have, those oaths that they take, we also kind of similarly have these code of conduct from, even international organizations and even in India, but some people don't really follow it. So it's really important that a psychologist who's actually successful, maybe the psychologist popular, but that they're doing some ethical work. I would say that really matters, whether the person is actually doing a wholesome or fulfilling job, or the person is just doing for the sake of it to earn money.
Yeah, so even like if suppose I am coming to you for therapy, you all need to understand that even though maybe I'm very close to my sister, I am not going to her to talk to this about. I'm coming to you and putting that confidentiality in you. So you need to keep that in mind and keep that trust for the person. Because if it is not there, then if you are having your own practice or even working for an organization, it can completely flip for you. Your whole career could flip, that's why. And I'll just check for any questions. Okay, so apart from prescribing medicines, what other perks are there that the psychiatrist has over a psychologist? That
I
made both
just
of
like
them
to
very
mention
happy.
the way you use the word perks. I wouldn't say perks, but it's just the level of education that you reach. No, I can't think of anything.
Should I start? Like the only perk, if you want to really get in, I think money would be the only perk, I feel, because they would be able to work in proper hospitals and they would be more recognized. Even the media today, suppose if it's an article on mental health, they would take someone who's a psychiatrist, like their opinion, than a psychologist. It's just that the people have this view that because you have done psychiatry, it is the best. It is, I mean, you have studied, you have done medicine, of course, you have done a lot of hard work, you have studied about all these disorders, the medication, the biology aspect, the genetics, etc. But personally, I feel when it comes to counseling and therapy, from my own experience, I've known people who have gone to psychiatrists for therapy, and it's been really negative experience for them, negative to such a point that they now don't believe in therapy. I know people who, I remember when I was young, when I was like doing my 11th, 12th and BA, I used to hold psychiatrists at a very high point of view. I used to feel like whenever I pass out, I want to work under them. Then maybe easy hoga, I would get easy, experience also. I would get money, etc. All these things were in my mind. But when I actually met some of them, I actually understood people's experience of going through, not, I won't say all of them are like that, of course there are some which are really doing honest work, and I feel there are some which are controversial as well. But taking whole in picture, for me as a person, I would feel for therapy and counseling you really need to do specific kind of training, which I feel only with doing psychiatry those individuals might not get. If after psychiatry they are doing other courses, like like I said, specific specialization courses, and working in a particular kind of therapy, that is different. But if you're only a psychiatrist with only a degree of your psychiatry, I would feel it's kind of like a drawback instead of a perk if you just bring in the aspect of therapy and counseling.
Okay, so the question that was asked, she meant in the sense like perks in the sense of helping people, like not money or anything else, but how are you better as a psychiatrist for helping people than as a psychologist? Yes, okay. So I don't think we have any more questions. I think we can move on to the myth busting round. I think that's something that everyone has been looking forward to. So we can go ahead with that. You guys can send in some assumptions or some things that you all have heard about psychology, and our speakers can tell you all whether it's a myth or whether it's true. So one myth we all know we got very often is it possible for a psychologist to do mind reading? Is that something you all do? So maybe you all can speak about it.
Unfortunately, we cannot. And I think that's very silly, because I experienced that as well. When I say that I'm a psychologist, I say, oh, so can you tell me what is going on in my mind right now? Which is not right. We are not here to read your minds, but we are here to understand you, put ourselves in your place, help you cope with the thing, and be empathetic with you rather than just, you need to talk for us to understand what is happening. So yeah, we cannot read your mind. I'm sorry. Maybe your non-verbal cues after a lot of experience, we can maybe figure out something, like when you're lying, when you're still hiding something and we need to probe you further, but we cannot read your mind, no.
So, and this is a question that I had. Rishali spoke about earlier, non-verbal cues. So do non-verbal cues actually play a very big part in your assessing or like helping out the person?
Yeah. So they actually play a really big part, because sometimes, you know, the client might be saying something from their words, but their non-verbal, their body language might be totally opposite. So, you know, when these things come across, if you are able to notice them, if you're able to bring not only that, you know, but you have to bring that awareness with the client as well. You need to know, you need to let the client know, you know, ki I am sensing that you are saying this, but your body language is saying this. So what's happening? Like, can you tell me more about it? Like, what's happening? And some therapy approaches actually focus a lot more on your body physical cues, like your body language, your non-verbal cues, as compared to even what you're talking. So, you know, there are therapies which focus more on your body work, focus more on your facial expressions. Like suppose if you are, so there are techniques that focus, suppose if you want to express something, but you're not able to. Suppose you want to cry and you're not able to, then it's possible that the professional at that time may motivate the client that, you know, I want you to cry, how much ever you can. So they actually want a more exaggerated response, just say you come to know that what's happening. So again, it really depends on the modality of the approach that you're working. But as a whole, non-verbal cues really matter a lot.
Is something, would Kaman like to add something? Or has Rishali covered it all? Okay, good. So there's another thing that psychologists in India are underpaid. Is that true?
Yeah, they are, and especially in the beginning, like I told you, the earning aspect is very less. But again, you know, if you get a good organization, if you get a good institution, like right now, I feel things are changing a little bit, because, you know, with more increased awareness, especially with the COVID, people are starting more coming out. People are talking more about COVID anxiety, depression, you know, feeling that loneliness with the quarantine, etc. So people are coming out. Pay, I would feel, as compared to other fields, it is less.
Also that psychologists have a better standard of living in foreign countries, as in UK or US. I think Kaman would know about that.
It's not about your standard of living. All these are very subjective. They have different meanings for different people. Like India has something that somewhere else doesn't, and somewhere else has something that India doesn't. Another thing is with regards to the pay, I cannot compare what I earn in India and compare what I earn in US, because what I spend in US is not the same as what I spend in India, right? So yes, and something that is expensive for me over there won't be expensive maybe for me over here. I don't know if you all get it, but it all depends. It all depends on the economy. It all depends on where you are in the organization, which stage of your career, what skills have you got, what certifications have you got, from where. So it's all subjective, and yeah, that's it. Like, I haven't gone too much into this topic. It's very sensitive.
Just one thing I wanted to add with the pay aspect. So even though my bachelor's and my master's fees were not so high, or as, you know, of a high level as compared to other private institutions or even in other countries, but there was a big kind of like a shock to me when I realized that actually the specialization courses in India are pretty expensive. So the course that I'm looking for a course of narrative therapy that reaches like 80K for 1 year. There are right now courses on expressive arts therapy. I think Xavier's does that, expressive arts therapy, and I think it reaches 1 lakh or 2 lakh or something. So even though education, I would say it's not that expensive, but your specialization courses are expensive, and this is something that you should do keep in mind. I wish this was something that people had told me earlier. I thought कि उतना ही fees होगा जितना मेरा school का fees था, college का fees था, and it would be manageable. But it is more than that.
But again, look at your return on investment. If I am putting 80,000, for example, right now, what is that 80,000 giving me? For how much more time is that 80,000 going to serve me? Right? So look at that.
So another thing is, can you all speak about neuropsychology? Like what is needed for that? What are the qualifications? Things like that. Kaman, this shook.
That's not my thing. I'm sorry. So Roshali, you can take over.
I don't know much about it. I just know that it's a new emerging field, and it is very, I've attended some workshops when I was doing my TYSY, etc. It's an emerging field. It's mostly, again, the aspects of the brain and how it interacts with how you feel, how you think, and how you say. So some experiments in neuroscience can be like, suppose if the person is feeling anger, then they would try to, use these neuroimaging methods like MRI, EEG, ECG, etc., to understand that what areas of your brain get activated when you're feeling anger. And suppose if you're feeling anger, and suppose if you're cooled down, then what areas are working then? So it's kind of like using psychology with science and using in a whole actual conceptual way, like, doing experiments and understanding. And with neuroscience, you also, the thing is, it's actually helping psychology, because people sometimes are so stigmatized. People will feel that psychology is very easy, कि तुम आज करके कर लेते हो, बहुत easy है, तुम बस सुनते ही हो. But when you get these facts and these research from neuropsychology and understand that there is actually a biological basis, when you're speaking someone, what happens in therapy, when someone is going through a breakup, what happens in the brain, when people understand and then they feel like, okay, science hai, brain ka hai, matlab valid hai, legit hai. So in many weird ways, it helps also, to help people understand. But the whole area of working with neuropsychology, I'm not really well versed with.
Okay, so another question is, do you need to show your clients a way, or is it essential for them, for you to give the client effective solutions? Like, how do you help them?
I really want to say that therapy is not advice giving at all. It is not solution giving at all. This is something which I understood in my master's, which my professors told me. When you are in that position, where you are listening to the client's whole worldview, your client's whole issues, their upbringing, what they're feeling, what they want to do, their dreams, aspirations, at that moment, you can't just give quick fixes, because you just know one window of their life. You don't know what your one advice, what solution is going to bring in the future, or how it's going to interlink with their whole life. So with me personally, and what approach that I want to work in therapy is to let client themselves come up with their own solution. To bring up a space that client ko khud se they come to know that what they need to do, what they want to do, what they feel like doing, and what is their, like Kaman said, authenticity. Even like we have to be authentic, even what solutions they come up with, it has to be authentic with their own life and their own self.
Yes. So, Sagar, I completely agree with what you're saying. Sorry, Kaman, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, so my field, we do provide solutions, because the problem is directly in front of us. We provide a solution and intervention, and then we see how the effects have been, if a new solution is required. Yeah, but these are for learning and leadership, not when the people come up to us directly for their personal stress and well-being issues. These are interventions as a whole to the whole organization.
Okay, so Sagar asked, how can you believe the authenticity of the psychologist or the organization you are going to? Because mental health and things like that are a very touchy subject, and a wrong step could affect very badly. So how can you know the authenticity?
I think that's a very good question, and it is difficult to know. But as far as an organization is concerned, if it's a startup or something, then it's meant to be a very close-knit group. And like that, you can maybe judge the people and see what is going on. But for example, a huge organization, you would be able to see through their culture, the leaders in the organization, what kind of learning initiatives are there, and what kind of professionals are they getting on board. Because of a psychologist being, he does not only interact with one, or he or she does not only interact with one team. It's different people coming from different places. And I'm sure they will either give feedback to the ones who have put in the intervention, or in extreme cases, there will be a turnover, like people will leave. So that is not good for the organization. So they do identify what will happen and what has happened, why has it happened, and then accordingly make the changes.
Yeah, I feel like that's like a very good question and very tough question, because people can make up, they can have fake profiles, they can make up as someone and the reality is something else. So I feel the most important thing I think over here is to understand firstly, when you're meeting the person for the first time or you're on a call, whatever, to ask for their education qualifications. And suppose their education qualifications and what they view, what is their own worldview. You can also ask your own peers if they have heard about this, this professional. You can check, I think there are website reviews on, I think, Procto or something. I think there are some websites also that talk about this psychologist, what were people's experience reviews. You can go through that. You can ask your professors if they know about this person, how it is. And overall, I feel if nothing works, if this person is new, you don't know, this is a new organization, this is a new person. When you are with that person, I would say trust your own guts and your own body language. Sometimes you will get a feeling, get an understanding that this person is not able to understand you, or you are in some path, but the therapist is going in some other direction. So it's not just authenticity, it's also maybe the person is not the best fit for you. And if it is, I would really suggest if you feel that the therapist is not a good fit for you, and after the third, fourth, fifth session, I would say that it's okay to terminate it. It's okay to express that with your therapist and see how the therapist reacts. If the therapist is angry and frustrated, again, you come to know about your authenticity, about the genuineness. If the therapist is able to understand, because we are taught this way that a client and we can't always be the best fit. It can be that we have clashes, or it's something that we are not capable enough working with. So that understanding, I feel an authentic therapist would do have.
We have one more question. How is BSc different from BA, as far as the education is going, and also in career opportunities?
I wouldn't know if this sometimes just a play of words.
Yeah, I feel same. I feel it's more or less the same. It depends again what institution are you doing with. So I think so I had applied for, I think Christ University only gives Bachelor in Science. They don't give BA. They give Bachelor in Science and Psychology, and they don't give BA in Psychology. But it's more or less the same. Again, like I kept on saying that there is more emphasis on biology, on more brain aspects. This is just an assumption, I feel, with my own understanding, that maybe after doing BSc, you can also get into neuropsychology, because again, it's basically the brain aspects. This is my own understanding. I might be wrong. So I would say do your research when doing a course, but I feel more or less when you're a professional, it really doesn't matter that if you have done BA or BSc.
Okay, so I don't think we have any more questions. We have very much stretched the time. We had two very knowledgeable women with us, so this is great. If you all do have any questions, I will send their email IDs on the psychology group. You all can get in touch with them. Thank you so much to everyone for being here. Thank you to the speakers. I'm sure you all have helped all of the students very much. And thank you to the alumni as well for hosting this for us, for having this opportunity for the students. And yeah, thank you so much. I think over to Dhruv now.
Can I say something before Dhruv starts?
Of course, of course.
I'd also like to thank the alumni and the whole team. I think you all are doing a wonderful job, and please carry on. And I'm sure this has been I'm not talking about this event that we had, but all the events that are taking place and the conversations that are taking place are definitely going to be helpful to the students. Thank you so much.
It's our pleasure. Thank you guys for being. Yeah, Vishali.
Yeah, like similar to what Kaman said, like, thank you for doing this. Thank you for giving us this opportunity as well. I hope we were at least helpful in some way to the students. And yeah, thank you so much for doing this.
Of course, it's our pleasure to have you guys. You guys are like super seniors from school. I've worked with Command for 1 year in the alumni. When I joined, she was there with us in the GM in 2018. This was the first time I conversed with Vishali. So it's great, getting to know you guys, network with you people. We get to know about, people from 𝐿𝐴 who passed out and doing great things like you guys. So we get inspired as well. That is why we work towards. And we hope students of today who are in 𝐿𝐴 currently get inspired from you guys as well. And I'm pretty sure most of them will. And yeah, thank you to everyone who joined in for the session. Thank you all the participants. And if you have any other questions further on, you can raise them on the WhatsApp group of psychology. If the speakers are comfortable with sharing the email IDs, of course, we'll do that as well. And you can contact them directly. And if there's anything the alumni can help you guys out with, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you so much, Alum. Thank you so much, Vishali, Command, for being here with us. And I would request all the participants to start leaving the meeting. And if the speakers could stay for a few minutes and have a conversation with our team after the participants have left. Thank you so much.